Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 31st of August 2021, a landmark day because, of course, this is going to be also our first segment. The US forces have completely evacuated from Afghanistan, as had been decided between the US forces and the Afghan Taliban. The US has also suspended diplomatic presence in Afghanistan and has moved its mission to Qatar. Celebratory gunfire, of course, was heard all across Kabul as the people celebrated the end of the US presence in Afghanistan. As Sohail Shaheen Saab said, that the last American soldier has left Afghanistan. Our country has gained full independence. Praise to be Allah. Heartfelt congratulations to all countrymen. This is going to be also our leading segment of the day today, and we will be talking about the latest developments as far as Afghanistan is concerned. Then, ladies and gentlemen, our second segment concerns the Foreign Office that has expressed a deep concern and about the lax arrangements in India for the security of nuclear and other radioactive material, something that started way back in 2016. And in this year alone, we've seen 3 different incidents in which nuclear material has been seized from people who were wanting to sell it inside of India, which raises many concerns about the security as far as the nuclear arsenal of India is concerned. Now, then we will be talking about as well as the US and the China relations and how they have been impacted first by the trade wars and now due to COVID-19. There is an emergence of a new kind of a war between the United States and China. Where is it all going to lead? What is going to happen as far as COVID-19 is concerned, and the allegations that, of course, the US is putting as far as the origins of COVID-19 are concerned. This is going to be our third story. And then finally, we'll be talking about the use of leaded petrol that has been eradicated from the globe. This is a milestone that is going to prevent 1.2 million premature deaths and will save the world economies over $2.4 trillion annually. This was said by the United Nations Environment Programme on Monday, that is yesterday. We're going to talk this as our last story. Let's begin with today's program and our leading segment. Of course, the first story concerns the latest situation in Afghanistan. The US troops have completely withdrawn from Afghanistan. What is now looking forward as far as Afghanistan is concerned, the region is concerned? More in the following report.
The most anticipated hushed American exit from Afghanistan has finally crystallized despite bleak shadow of terrorism casted by dreadful ISKP attacks. The present state of affairs in Afghanistan are not encouraging but undoubtedly have opened doors to new chapter in history of war-ravaged country. Taliban fighters took charge of Kabul's airport as the last US soldier flew out of the country. Celebratory gunfire and fireworks lit up the Kabul night sky. The Taliban eulogized American departure and asserted that Afghanistan is a free and sovereign nation as it hails the exit of US troops after 20 years of occupation, describing their departure as a historic moment. Speaking to reporters from Kabul airport, Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid emphasized that on behalf of my nation we want to have good relations with the rest of the world. Earlier, Marine General Frank McKenzie, head of US Central Command, announced that the last American troops flew out of Kabul just before midnight local time. US President Joe Biden set a deadline of August 31st for the withdrawal of US troops. Troops from Kabul exit via Islamabad, whereby Interior Minister Sheikh Rashid Ahmad noted that US troops stay here is temporary. While recognizing indispensable role of Pakistan in Afghan endgame, US Senator Chris Van Hollen thanked Pakistan, among other countries, for helping evacuate American nationals and others stranded in Afghanistan following the Taliban takeover of the country. It is pertinent to mention here that America's longest war took the lives of nearly 2,500 US troops and an estimated 240,000 Afghans and cost some $2 trillion.
We'll continue talking about, of course, the latest situation that emanates from Afghanistan, but after this short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and to talk more about our first segment, and that concerns the latest situation in Afghanistan following the complete evacuation of the US troops. We've been joined by Usama Nizamani. He's a researcher at IPRI and also a foreign affairs expert. Usama, thank you very much to have joined us. Usama, first of all, let's talk about the evacuation of the US forces and how the Afghan Taliban are celebrating this joyous day as per their assertion. What lies ahead for the Afghan Taliban and for Afghanistan?
I think thank you so much, Omar, for having me for the show. I think it's a very historic moment, given the fact that a lot of the people in this region, especially all over the world, have actually grown with this conflict for 20 years. And I'm sure a lot of people have come a long way. Not many may have seen the dawn to see this day, but in many ways, this is a historic moment. But I think at the end of the day, the challenge actually lies ahead for the region, especially Afghanistan, and especially for Pakistan and the regional countries, in terms of how they go about, uh, setting forth the direction of this conflict, if I could still say, in some ways, because we've seen the disengagement at the military level, but we still see in terms of the in the economic facet, Afghanistan has, entered a new uncharted waters. Its, foreign exchange reserve remains frozen by United States, and so it has a lot of, uncertainties ahead of itself.
All right. Now, when we talk of uncertainties, there are, of course, a lot of different challenges that lie ahead as far as Afghanistan and the government, whichever party makes a government, whether it be a national government or whether it be the Afghan Taliban that make a government. There is a lack of trust between them and the other factions of Afghanistan, also between them and some other countries. There is, of course, as you pointed out, an economic and humanitarian catastrophe that is looming very large all across Afghanistan, and also on the people that are faced with the human rights issue since some time. Then there is, of course, a lack of skilled Afghan presence inside of Afghanistan, how they will cope with it. Then, of course, diplomatic isolation, as I've talked about in the beginning as well. With certain countries, they do not like the fact that the Afghan Taliban have taken over again, seeing the past history in the 1990s. And then the threat by other factions such as IS. How do you see all of these different challenges that the Afghan Taliban are now faced with?
I think so. This is how we could put this up. And I think if we try and look at it, how do we get out of this quagmire if things go the way they seem to be going right now? Though we could certainly say that for Taliban it is certainly a moment of victory. Given the fact that they've endured this conflict for so long and in such a persistent manner. But now the fact is this, that Afghanistan, and especially the Afghan people, now is the time to actually go ahead and cater the larger public. So what we have at hand is the issue and the challenge of humanitarian crisis that is likely to be faced by the Afghan public. Pakistan has recently, offered medical supplies to Afghanistan. Especially, it provided the medical supplies to Mazar-e-Sharif. It, delivered these medical supplies. But now the thing is this, that Afghanistan, being a landlocked country, and especially a country like Pakistan, which has endured economic crisis a few years ago, certainly realizes any country which would have a shortfall of foreign exchange reserves, the kind of challenges a country like that can actually experience. So Afghanistan, since it's a landlocked country, it relies, or it looks forward to having a lot of these food supplies through its imports, and the same goes for the medical supplies. It's a country which has been ravaged by war, so it certainly does not have a good industrial base to cater for its needs. So of course, it would need all the foreign exchange reserve to get all these essential necessities in order to meet the needs of its public. So I think it would be all the more important for the international community to realize that first things first, they would need to send in all the necessary humanitarian supplies so that the Afghan public does not become a casualty in this, say, now the diplomatic conflict between Taliban and the United States and other international powers. So I think the focus right now should be the Afghan public and
Will
how
the
they
United
can be
Nations,
catered in
Usama,
this.
take precedence now that, of course, we see a lot of issues happening in Afghanistan, especially concerning the humanitarian crises and the economic crisis that are looming large? Do you feel that the UN are going to kind of put in a major role as far as the coming 6 months or 1 year are concerned concerning Afghanistan? Or do you feel there's going to be a laid back attitude from the international community?
I think the question is not whether they should be or whether they would be doing it. I think there is no any alternative option in this case. I think thankfully, given this recent crisis that we've seen in the last 15 days, I can bet you and I can reassure you, no analyst in this country would have seen a bloodless, if I could say, takeover of power in Kabul. It's a near bloodless takeover. So we've been thankfully averted this humanitarian catastrophe, given that we haven't had the kind of influx of refugees that would have happened had there been, a a forceful takeover of Kabul or a forceful takeover of the country itself. So I think that way we've been awarded that crisis. However, if the humanitarian crisis persists, and you see a country like Afghanistan, I think Taliban may have their moment of joy right now, but unfortunately, when they would not have the access to these foreign exchange, I think that in itself would create a lot of problem, and eventually it would be the Afghan public which may end up becoming the casualty when they would need these essential food supplies, when they would need the essential medical supplies. So I think
But Osama, for
these.
all of this, what is pertinent is that there be some kind of a stability inside of Afghanistan following the takeover of the Afghan Taliban. Now, we know of the talks that are happening between the different anti-Taliban factions and the Afghan Taliban. At the same time, you're also hearing reports from Panjshir. Where is all of this going in your point of view? Do you feel that the Afghan Taliban are no longer the ones of the 1990s? They will relent for talks and form some kind of an agreement with the other factions that are in Afghanistan?
I think yes, Omar. I would go ahead and still finish my last point. I think
All
the
right.
UN. I wanted to say is that UN would not have any kind of option in this place. They need to and they must come up forward, and meet the humanitarian needs of the Afghan public. In this case, God forbid. Why I'm trying to say this, God forbid, if these needs are not met, you know, uh, in future we would not be having foreign forces or other powers evacuating the Afghan public. So I think if the international community is like really serious about rebuilding Afghanistan, they need to keep the Afghan public at the center of this. So first things first, humanitarian supplies should be made sure, irrespective of who is in power, those supplies need to be provided to the Afghan public. Now, coming on to the second point, how do we see, Taliban behaving or conducting itself in the coming days? I think their policy statements so far remains to be consistent so far in these last 15 days to what they've been saying. And I think as long as what they're trying to say in terms of inclusive government, we could have two forms. We could either have some elements from the, let's say, erstwhile Northern Alliance that may comprise the part of the future government, of a future inclusive government. And another alternative, we may actually see some more diverse elements within the Taliban that may come from a different ethnic background. And then at the same time, we could also have, say, technocrats, experts from different ethnic backgrounds, which may have expertise in certain professional areas where they could be of use to a future Afghan government. So I think in those ways, Taliban could have a more inclusive government. So I think it's the time starting onwards from this day onward, which will actually determine how Taliban is actually serious in meeting the commitments that it has made, either through its spokespersons and through various policy statements it has been giving out in these last 2 weeks. So I think starting, as you say, it's a historic moment. So starting from today, I think it would become all the more apparent in terms of where Taliban is setting out its own direction in terms of its own policies.
All right, now let's also talk about
So
the direction that the US is taking or other countries across the world are taking, especially the European Union and other important countries that matter, leaving aside the important regional players, which include Pakistan, Iran, the Central Asian countries, and Turkey and China. Now, Anthony Blinken said a new chapter of American engagement with Afghanistan has begun. It's one of in which we will lead with our diplomacy. At the same time, we also know the German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas is in Pakistan. He's had talks with our foreign minister. They had a press briefing in which they talked about the need for international cooperation to ensure stability in Afghanistan. How much are the Western countries willing to invest in Afghanistan to ensure stability and the sustenance of the people and the economy of the country?
I think, Omar, as long as the US and the European countries are concerned, I think their test begins in the form and in the sense how serious they are in terms of providing the future Afghan government. I may not confine it to Taliban alone, but to a future Afghan government. How serious are they in terms of providing them access to these foreign exchange reserve of Afghan public itself and of the Central Bank of Afghanistan itself? Because that in itself would show the willingness, the seriousness of the Western countries to see a stable order in Afghanistan itself. Because I think it's more important to discuss the kind of offshots or the kind of, the domino effect, the inability to have the access to the foreign exchange itself would entail. So I think if, as a first step, in a graduated manner, US, UK, and the other Western countries could have a condition-based access of foreign exchange reserve for the future Afghan government. That in itself puts signal not just to the government, but also to the Afghan public, that the Western powers, especially all the powers that be in the West, are serious in terms of engaging the Afghan public and the future Afghan government. And I think it is from there, based on the fact that they do certainly enjoy a significant leverage in that sense, diplomatically and economically. They
All
could
right.
then, move from here in terms of engaging Afghanistan in more economic enterprises.
All right, only time will tell how all of that cooperation boards as well. We know that the US Senator Chris Van Hollen thanked Pakistan, other countries that include the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, for supporting the evacuation process. Now, at the same time, we know that Pakistan and the US have also continued contacts as far as the future of Afghanistan is concerned. Do you feel that Pakistan's role continues to be important now in these coming weeks and months? And do you feel other regional players like China, Turkey, Central Asian countries will also be supporting Pakistan in its endeavors for an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led process of stability, whether it be political or economic?
I think yes, Pakistan's role is going to stay instrumental and central also. There are multiple reasons for it. The first being is the fact that, Pakistan has shown the responsibility in terms of engaging various regional countries to, build up a more regional or a region-led, diplomatic initiative to engage these countries and to see that, we could have a more consensus-driven agenda regarding Afghanistan. So I think at the forefront is the fact that Pakistan certainly desires, and so do other regional countries desire, that there is stability in Afghanistan. When we certainly have stability in Afghanistan, it would be all the more, opportune time for Central Asian countries, which are turning 30 years old this year. And if we compare it back to, say, early 90s, it's all the more different because these countries have grown now. They have more stable systems within their own countries, and so they would want to have access to South Asian markets. And I think that is where Pakistan is coming more handy because it understands the Afghan dynamics. It has one of the largest numbers of refugees that are residing in Pakistan. Around over 3 million Afghans are residing in Pakistan, and in a very respectable manner. So I think Pakistan has that cultural insight to enjoy that kind of leverage in terms of facilitating the entire process. So I think Pakistan and all the regional countries that you just mentioned, especially those in Central Asia and also countries like Iran, are interested in seeing a stable Afghanistan, so they could have more economic
China as
integration
well, of
and
course.
regional.
The
Of
BRI,
course,
the CPEC is, of course,
of
very
course,
much related to peace in Afghanistan.
of course, of course. The reason why I've mentioned these regional countries, I think they are more at the center of winning from the entire or the larger regional connectivity projects like say BRI or the one that is being undertaken by Russia also. So I think all of the countries do realize that there is a win-win opportunity for them. And since Afghanistan, though it may be a landlocked country, but geographically it has a very important position because it provides access to, say, a country like Pakistan, which could provide access to the warm waters for trade, for connectivity, for commerce. So it makes it all the more important why they would all be invested in having a stable Afghanistan in future rather than
That
having
is so
different
true. I mean, a
factions.
stable Afghanistan is in the interest of any country, whether it be Pakistan, China, Turkey, Central Asian countries, states, or also the United States and the European Union. Thank you very much, Usama Nizamani, to have joined us, to have talked to us about, of course, the future, which Afghanistan is now faced with a lot of challenges that it needs to confront. And of course, all starts with a national reconciliation with the other factions, and then, of course, come the other challenges. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the nuclear arsenal of India and how, for the very third time in this very year, there has been a seizure of material, of uranium enriched material that has been found in India, of people trying to sell that material, which shows a lack, A, of the security apparatus in India, and B, of the nuclear arsenal inside of India. Despite the fact that the first time we heard of this sale was in 2016 and then thrice in this year, shows a lot of concern that needs to be put up on India by all the different actors that work across the world. More in the following report.
The outrageous saga of Indian nuclear recklessness is not only jeopardizing the security of the region, but also liquidating international security order. There are multiple instances which unravel the incidence of lax nuclear security arrangements in India, depicting New Delhi's callous disregard for nuclear security. The third instance of seizure of stolen radioactive material in India over the past 4 months established that regional reprobate Indian regime is pariah state. Islamabad has reiterated its demands for a thorough investigation into reports of theft and illegal possession of radioactive material in India days after 2 people were arrested for possessing californium. Foreign Office spokesperson Asim Iftikhar Ahmed said in a statement on Monday that it is a matter of grave concern for international community that an extremely rare sealed radioactive source material like californium could be stolen. Earlier, media reports had highlighted separate seizures in May and June 2021 of over 7 kg and more than 6 kg of uranium from unauthorized persons in India. This pattern of stealing radioactive material from India and consequent callous response of New Delhi depicts that the saffron terrorist regime is fomenting chances of nuclear terrorism by sheer vulnerability of nuclear materials. Though the likelihood of a nuclear terrorist attack could be relatively low, but the repercussions of such an attack would be dreadful. This time is ripe for international community to act against an irresponsible regime by imposing crippling economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation.
Now, to talk more about this issue, we've been joined by Syed Muhammad Ali, Director of Strategic Affairs at CAS. Ali, thank you very much to have joined us. Ali, how do you see all of this? I mean, these developments and of course all of that, what is happening, whether it be this third time that there has been uranium that has been seized by the authorities in India. And of course, as you know, if we go back in history, it was in 2016 that police had seized almost 9 kilograms or 19.8 pounds of depleted uranium in the Thane area of Maharashtra. And after that, of course, we saw on the 7th of May, 2 people were arrested. Over 7 kilograms of uranium was seized in India. Then came the 4th of June, where 6 kilograms of uranium was seized in India. 7 people were arrested. And then again, Indian authorities recovered last week 4 mineral-like rocks that weighed 250.5 grams, which are believed to be extremely expensive radioactive material, also known as californium. This material, if original, is approximately valued at Indian rupees 4,250 crores. Syed Muhammad Ali, Director Strategic Affairs, CAS, welcome to this segment. Ali, as I was just explaining to the audience that this is 3 times this year that uranium has been seized or related material has been seized by the Indian authorities, and in 2016 also we heard of such material being seized. Why is A, India not serious about uranium, and B, how do you see this nuclear black market in India and no reaction, no strong reaction coming from that country in order to kind of forbid or suspend such activities?
Thank you so much, Omar. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, brilliant. I think, thank you, my compliments for choosing this as a topic, which is very important for international peace and security, first off. Secondly, I think it is another evidence that India is the most irresponsible nuclear power in the world. And this provides another compelling evidence. And for the benefit of your viewers and international audience, let me tell you there are 10 reasons why restraining and reviewing international cooperation regarding the nuclear technology with India is an international security imperative. There are 10 reasons. Number 1, India is the only nuclear power which is led by an extremist government. So these nuclear weapons and this nuclear program is in the possession of an extremist entity which is ruling India right now.
Of course.
Number 2, India has the largest nuclear program in the entire developing world. Number 3, the speed at which it is increasing is also very fast. And number 4, why it is increasing? It is because of international cooperation and over 12 deals that it has signed since the Indo-US nuclear deal to get technology, material, uranium, and other assistance to accelerate and expand its program. Number 5, coming to the topic today, it has the poorest safety and security record of perhaps the entire developing world who are members of International Atomic Energy Agency. And number 7, it has a large number of insurgencies that you are aware of. So number of these nuclear facilities are situated in those states in India which have insurgencies, not just criminals. So that is an issue of grave concern for the international community. And number 8 is the nexus with the criminals and the scientific community who are colluding to sell this sensitive and radioactive material for economic gains. And the last point, number 9, and the most important, is the nexus of Indian nuclear program and the people responsible and involved in it with the international nuclear black market. This third incident which has been reported indicates and proves that Indian involvement in the nuclear black market is perhaps greater, larger, and more frequent than anybody else. So this deserves a timely international concern and intervention based on the review of all the international nuclear cooperation arrangements that India has with the international community in the greater interest of international peace and security.
Let's talk about the timely intervention. This is the last point that you've talked about, that the international community needs to have a timely intervention. Well, I mean, we are not hearing of anything. Third incident this year, the first incident we had heard in 2016, never heard anything from the IAEA or other important nuclear watchdogs as to what they are doing. Has there been a mission in India to oversee the security aspects of their nuclear arsenal? Has the Indian government talked to any important organization? No, we haven't heard of it. Why is that so? Are the international bodies overlooking what is happening in India because of the geo-economic relationship that they have with it?
I think there are three reasons. One, like you rightly pointed out, at times, unfortunately, the economic considerations of the international nuclear suppliers, particularly the nuclear industry, uh, surmounts and overwhelms the, the need to ensure that their customer and the country with which it is sharing their technology is responsible and careful to handle and manage it safely and securely, which is obviously not the case. The second is the geopolitical context. It is also very unfortunate that India seems to have misled the Western powers in terms of believing that New Delhi can be useful in in helping containment of China project. Although it is very important, and I have said it to my American friends at the top international forums repeatedly, and some of their visionary strategic thinkers tend to understand and agree with it, that the Indian strategic thought, Indian strategic culture is incompatible with this geopolitical commitment of containment of China. Because essentially, Indian strategic thought and strategic culture is based on the hatred of the Muslims. Their defense posture is primarily towards Pakistan. So they are trying to fool the West by trying to attract this nuclear technology and military equipment in order to lure them and make them believe that India can help contain China. It is
Now,
not going to
Ali,
do that.
are the international
And that is
intelligence
why
and security
that is why
agencies
it is.
so easy to be fooled by India? I mean, this comes as a surprise to me. Or are they overlooking it? I will again use the word overlooking. And what kind of repercussions is this also going to have in the longer period of time as far as the security of nuclear assets, nuclear arsenal is concerned, and of course this nuclear black market? Wouldn't it be a huge threat for the entire region if this material continues to be exported through nuclear black markets?
Responding to your last point, which is the most important, um, it is not necessary that this material, this radioactive material, is used. There is no guarantee it will be used regionally or locally. There is all possibility. I don't know where these Indian nuclear scientists and those charged with the responsibility of Indian nuclear safety and security, where are they selling it? They could be selling it to America. Who knows? There can be a nuclear 9/11. I don't know. If the motive for this crime is money, then I'm sure those who are selling it and have a nexus with the nuclear black market will go to the highest bidder. What if this leads to a nuclear 9/11 in America? I don't know. There is no ideological control. There is no economic control. There is no IAEA oversight over the and let me tell your viewers, India has a very large unsafeguarded nuclear program as well, which is not under IAEA. The IAEA oversight is only restricted to the peaceful and power reactors. India has 8 reactors which are unsafeguarded, which are used for producing plutonium for their weapon program. I and you do not know whether this pilferage is coming from the nuclear weapon side of the program or the peaceful side, which is under IAEA safeguards. So, and without international oversight, there is no guarantee that it is being done. So, like you rightly pointed out, it is in global interest and international security imperative to ensure that all those more than dozen countries which are for economic reasons or for geopolitical reasons selling or providing and sharing nuclear technology and material with India, and despite its very irresponsible nuclear behavior, they must review all their individual and bilateral nuclear cooperation agreements and ensure and demand greater oversight, control, restraint, and restrictions from India. Because without this, they are actually contributing to the growing international peace and security threats. Because if India is not responsible enough to protect and secure and use the nuclear technology and nuclear material responsibly, then I don't know where it can be lead to. So it is the global responsibility of the international community in general and the nuclear suppliers in particular. And also here, let me reiterate, those countries who are supporting India in its bid for nuclear suppliers group membership should also reconsider their support, because they should condition their support on the criteria and the nuclear history and the nuclear behavior of India. A lot of people used to talk about Pakistan, but the reality is Pakistan has an impeccable, unblemished, very responsible, internationally respected nuclear safety and security standards. And India has the poorest safety and security standards. So IAEA and also those countries who support India in the NSC membership bid must reconsider it, not just for geopolitical reasons, but also in the greater interest of international peace and security.
All right. Finally, Ali, it all bodes very well when we talk about these things, but all of these words never translate into action. I mean, the 3 times this year, once in 2016, huge security risk, so many other risks that you've talked about, the 9 points that you mentioned as well, which are of huge concern and should be of huge concern to the international bodies. But of course, I don't know whether something is happening behind this stage, but as far as statements emanating from the world bodies, nothing is happening, and they are maybe either not interested or are maybe doing something else, or maybe it is with the collusion of certain powers that be. Irrespective of that, Pakistan has highlighted it, and it continues to highlight this role that India has been playing, and of course this nuclear black market that exists. Do you feel at any moment in time that there will be some kind of a public statement, whether from the FATF, whether from the IAEA, as far as this incidents are concerned?
I think you've raised very important questions. I think there are 4 things that need to be done. Number one, like you rightly pointed out, first of all, let me congratulate capable and very knowledgeable anchor person like yourself for highlighting it and bringing it to the attention of your international viewers. It is very important that we keep this in the international, as part of the international debate, that the poor safety and security Indian nuclear record and also its irresponsible nuclear behavior needs to be part of the international discourse, be it international media, be it international think tanks. That's a very important issue. The second thing is the political and the diplomatic level. I'm sure Pakistan has very capable diplomats and foreign service. They are raising it, but obviously they must share it with all their counterpart countries, particularly the 48 countries who are members of the nuclear suppliers group. Pakistan should develop a dossier based on this poor and pathetic and irresponsible and dangerous Indian nuclear safety and security record, and compile a dossier on that, similar to the Disinfo Lab dossier, based on all the facts and figures, and share it with all those 48 countries.
That is so important, and I think Pakistan's role has been extremely prominent as far as highlighting what is happening in India, and of course this whole nuclear black market that is emerging from our neighboring country that causes huge concern, not only for the region but for the world itself, as you talked about nuclear 9/11. I mean, the US and other countries should take cognizance of this fact. Thank you very much, Syed Muhammad Ali, Director of Strategic Affairs, CAS, to have joined us and to have talked to us about this very, very pertinent, important issue, that is nuclear safety in the region. Now let's go towards COVID-19, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, and how the US and China are moving towards another kind of war, and that is COVID Cold War. After the trade war that we saw between the 2 countries, and of course now that the US is out of Afghanistan, its major concern seems to be now China, one way or the other. As we've seen, it has been using other countries, but now there seems to be a kind of a tiff as far as the origins of COVID-19 are concerned, and how the US is putting the blame game on China as being behind all of that, and China is refuting the reports that have emanated from the United States of America as far as the origins of this pandemic is concerned. This locking of horns as far as a pandemic is concerned, cannot bode well for the world community and for the region at large. It is high time that both the countries, especially the United States of America, understands this perspective and comes out of it and tries to seek some kind of a solution as far as not only the pandemic is concerned, but also a relationship, a tangible cooperative relationship with China. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about leaded petrol and how that has caused havoc in the lives of so many people across the world. Concerns were raised as far back as 1924, and now leaded petrol has run out of gas, as has been reported by so many different agencies. A century, almost a century, I mean after 1924 we are in 2021, after the very first warnings. This was set by the United Nations, a milestone that is going to prevent more than 1.2 million premature deaths and will save world economies over $2.4 trillion US dollars. This is the UNEP that has said that in a very important report. There are so many challenges that the world is confronted with, whether it be climate change, whether it be this. Let's hope that the world comes together as one and understands these challenges and works together to make the global population and the world come out of all these different crises that it is engulfed with. Let's end this on this very good note of the world without leaded petrol, and we'll see you tomorrow with news stories and segments that interest you and us and Pakistan in general. Till then, stay safe, get yourselves vaccinated and follow the SOPs. Allah Hafiz.